Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Everybody give it up for Paul George. The big sacrifice that he's making for this team.
The evaluation.
To be fair, this team also makes me want to stop podcasting.
Really? All right. Well, cool.
You don't say.
You don't say. Paul is right. That's why I wore my glasses today, so I can make sure that I make some changes for the final 25 games, too, to make sure that I give my best to this show. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Pregame show here on a Wednesday, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We'll get to our pregame picks a little bit later. Starters as well. It's Derek Bodner, Kyle Newbeck. I'm Devon Givens. Bree with us, all of you in the chat. And man, yes, I saw it as soon as we stepped into the show here. And so many people, especially Mark Jackson right away. Hope y'all speak on Nut You Know What Podcast P. Well, guess what, Mark? You set our show up because we are going to speak about Podcast P. He's available tonight. And you know it's great that he's available tonight, knowing that he's a little more focused in this particular game against the New York Knicks and the final 24 after tonight, so they can close out for, well, let's just let him tell you what he wants to do to focus on the remainder of the season, and then we'll talk about the game a little bit, the starters, the pregame picks a little bit later, courtesy of Bet365. But Bree, let's get ready to fire it up with Paul George and what he has to say exactly about his focus for the season.
Fellas, it's no secret. This season is up to this point, man. It hasn't been what we envisioned. I know my goal when I first signed with Philadelphia was to bring a championship to these amazing fans here. I still remain positive about that, and that is still the case and where I'm coming from. With that being said, though, I want to let the Podcast P family know that after today's episode with Dwight, I plan to take a break from the pod just to focus on getting my body right, getting mentally right, and, you know, help this squad make a push towards our goal to finish the season out, give ourselves a chance to be in contentions to compete for a championship. I won't front. The desire to get back to shooting in person with my guys as well is the forefront of, you know, this hiatus as well. I look forward to us three being back together and doing this as we once started this. So we'll be back on that note. Be sure to lock in with us because we got some big things in store in our future. In the meantime,
be easy.
Come on, bro. The end of that really is like, and the other part of why I'm doing this is I really want to do in-studio shoots with the fellas.
So
come on, bro. It's beyond parody.
I know,
parody.
Obviously, this is lip service. It's optics, all that. But if it was true, if you actually needed to stop podcasting so you can focus better on basketball, what the bleepity bleep 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 were you doing for the last 4 months? And again, it's lip service. It's optics. It's all that. I know. But if what you're saying is true, you're admitting that it distracted you. Like, come on.
Right. The implication by admitting this is, yeah, you weren't putting all your time and energy that you needed to into the rehab, into the, you know, the mental part of contending, or let's set aside contending, even though that's what he's saying, making the playoffs and being a playoff team, right? Like, this is the guy that's talking about championship habits and playoff habits, and we're almost 60 games in and it's unacceptable. And like, look, this is kind of who Paul George has always been, right? Like, I think his heart is in the right place,
yes,
but he always manages to say something at the wrong time and do it at the wrong time, so that people are like, bro, are you kidding me? Like, the house has been on fire for like 3 months.
Kevin Every says, bro snitched on himself. Right.
And again, it's all optics. That's all it is. But if it's optics, then the optics of what you're saying are not great.
No.
Come on, man.
And this is not the first time. So you go against the other day when you reported, when he said, hey, how can you help Joel through this process here a little bit? He said drugs.
Drugs help.
All right, look.
I feel like that's got to be a shirt.
You
drugs
know what?
help.
Drugs help.
PHLY Sixers.
But you know what? Say that when you're 37 and 20 and need to make that real push for the postseason and seeding purposes, where drugs help, and make a little fun there. In the past, when the Eagles were making their Super Bowl run and ultimately winning the Super Bowl, yeah, I see them speaking on his podcast as a dynasty going forward. We don't need to hear that from you right now, okay? we don't need that. We don't need that right now. So listen, he manages to kind of, as you said, say things at the wrong time when they know they don't need to be said. And it's not that he can't say things at all. He's supposed to be one of the leaders of the team. So you would look to he and Tyrese Maxey specifically going down the stretch. Those two, the only two speaking after the game the other night after that loss. But he just has this knack of saying stuff that we ultimately make fun of because he is that guy from the podcast P thing to the Perrier and Percocet P part of it.
Paloma P.
Because, yes, Pomona P because of what he did on the beach during the All-Star break there with his wife and hanging out and posting a picture, reposting it, after his wife posted it. He just has the knack of doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, including a 2-point performance going into the All-Star break and all of it. So that's why we're here starting the show off with that, making fun of him because he's, as our commenter said, he's making fun of himself when he says this stuff. My man, you were injured earlier in the year with the same knee injury. Are you saying you didn't take that seriously to get back out there on the floor? What are you saying? And to be there with your guys, all right, we know you're going back home in the offseason to train and work out and do your podcast in the summer as well. But don't tell us that. Don't tell us that now. Just go back and do it when the season is over. And if you're making this push for the playoffs, wouldn't that put it on hold for you to get back to the studio with your guys because you're making, come on, man.
And again,
come on.
He, like, the effort that I'm sure he has to put in for that podcast, very low. Like, he's got his own version of Super Producer Bree cutting clips. Not as good, but like his own version. Like, he's not sitting here writing out an outline and cutting clips and promoting it. Like, it probably, like, if Joe goes home and plays video games, that probably spends the same amount of time as Paul going back and podcasting. But like, if your whole thing is optics, make the optics actually look good instead of just releasing that.
I also think it's funny, especially because the fans have given up on the season. Everyone is like, everyone's looking at them dead in the eye and saying, please lose games. You need to tank. Yes. Try less than ever. And Paul George is like, now's when I got to lock in. It was almost like Eric Gordon sucked for like 2.5 months. Right when everyone was like, throw the towel in. He shoots 50% from three for a month. And it's like, oh, they're back. And then once they get the reinforcements,
he's gone.
He disappears and he's out for the year with wrist surgery.
So Agavini says, are we just going to ignore that Devon is wearing glasses? No, at the very top, I said, wear my glasses. Just like Paul George is focusing on these last 25. I needed my glasses a little bit over the last couple of days. I'm wearing them to focus on the last 25 games of the season here, just like Paul George.
Devon said, these are the glasses I pull out when I need to focus as we're 17 games under 500.
17.
That's break glass in case of 17 games under.
That's it. So,
come on, man.
Man. So, I mean, yeah. Well, look, Derek, he said he's going to play here these last 20, or he's going to try to play these last 25, still dealing with the injury with his finger. But how are fans supposed to look at this and think you're going to get anything different than what you've already seen from him with the splint on his finger and going out there seemingly healthy enough to play, and it hasn't played well enough?
Yeah, I don't think you should have any expectation. Like, I think clearly the whole team is not locked in, no matter what the podcaster wants to say. I think his aggressiveness.
All right, you're putting a little too much mustard on the word podcaster, given that we do 5 shows a week over here.
Clearly, his aggressiveness is down. I think probably in part because of the pinky.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, there's no chemistry between pretty much anyone on the roster. So if you're asking me why would they all of a sudden, as they slip further and further back into the bottom of the standings, start playing better? No, I don't think you should have confidence in that, it turns out.
Yeah, like, look.
That's why you gave the ovation at the top.
I said about Paul, but also about Tyrese the other night, right? Like, when they stood or sat at their lockers and talked to us after that game, where, as Devon pointed out, maybe 16 times the other day, they lost by 50 to the Bulls, or they were down by 50 yes. to the Bulls. I'll correct myself there. They all sat there and said, like, hey, we're not pointing fingers, and this is unacceptable, and we need this effort, and we need this. But nobody is actually leading by example on that front, right? Like, there was a time when Paul was. There was a time when Tyrese was on both ends of the floor, quite frankly. But we're at the point now where it's just capitulation time, right? And if we were to try to do the Hopium podcast tonight, we'd be like, hey,
couldn't even.
Karl Anthony Towns is out, right? Then maybe they have a chance because of that. The Knicks don't have any bigs. Their defense has not really been all that great this year. And now without Cat, the floor spacing will be different and blah, blah, blah. But like at the end of the day, it comes back to what these guys want to do and what these guys are willing to do. And what we have seen every single night for weeks now is just nothing. They don't want to give anything. They've shown they don't want to battle for the coach. They don't want to battle for each other. They're not even out there battling for like individual pride, right? Like there are a few guys like Quentin Grimes is playing for whatever contract he's going to get in the summer. And there are certain guys, Justin Edwards as a young guy has played really hard, and I'll be excited to see a little bit of him tonight after a few game absence. But outside of that, it has just been dire straits for anybody who's trying to play hard.
If there's one thing we've learned from this year, you cannot trust podcasters under any circumstance, both in our predictions and also the production on the court.
Yeah, well, and even when you look at Paul George for where they are right now and going out there and giving the effort against, I mean, look, we talked about the Chicago Bulls, and yeah, I was making fun of them with the down by 50 to that Chicago Bulls team.
50.
This Knicks team is, 50. This Knicks team is 17 games over 500. They just got destroyed by the Boston Celtics in their last game. And tonight you already mentioned that they're going to be out with Karl Anthony Towns. They have something to play for. They're in the 3rd seed right now. So where Chicago is not trying to go out there and win, the players certainly are because they have something to play for. But this Knicks team, they have a purpose that they're going out there to play for tonight. And sure, you're going to need Paul George to play better to keep it close, but not many people, you've given fans no indication that you're going to really go out there and give them a chance to win every night, especially when you play against a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference that has, again, a meaning in front of them for what they're trying to do. So for him, as you mentioned yesterday, Kyle, this is not Oklahoma City, Indiana, or Los Angeles. This is Philadelphia. So everything is magnified by 10, by 100 when it comes to what you do on the floor and also the optics of it that Derek talked about a little bit earlier, from the earlier things you said in the season, the 2-point game before the All-Star break, and then coming back here and then finally giving us one more thing to point the finger at you and say, hey, man, I understand you have a great producer. That producer is not Bree. Bree wouldn't have put that out for us to make us look silly, but somebody gave them the okay. And you as and he kept saying, the Podcast P family. All right, well, you also need to make sure that while it's going to be a part of your podcast and you may not edit that out completely, you don't make that an isolated clip that's out there for a place like Philadelphia, but also for a place like Los Angeles, who are going to be the ones that said, hey, Philly, everybody, told you. That's just going to be a running joke and a running theme right now. Just go out there and do the work. Let the work speak for itself and not the words that you say on the podcast like that to, again, be isolated the way that it is to make yourself
just
look
stop
silly.
Recording.
Run it again.
Like, if it's epic, just don't post stuff.
Yeah.
Just play. And
I'd imagine based on that, he's no longer recording until the off season, right? So we'll see what he does. But you're absolutely right, man, to point out this is not those other cities. That thing is going to be highlighted here, and it was all day. And we just shared it with everybody here.
Well, everyone, I want you to hit your social media platform of choice and hit it with the hashtag Thank You PG.
Go to our team Twitter account, PHLY_Sixers on Twitter, and do that. Do just that when it comes to Paul George.
PG.
Yes, go do that. Bree put it up there on the screen again. That's why she's the best. And production excellence, as always, by Bree. All right, let's get to the game tonight. 25 left.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. They're on an 8-game losing streak right now, folks, and they have not looked good.
I think that's kind of implied by the 8-game losing streak, but yes, I'm glad you clarified.
They have not looked good, down by 50 and lose by 32 to the Bulls. Kyle, how do they follow this one up? And just going out there, is it just
first they have to
competing?
Try.
Yeah, the effort and all of that.
So I honestly, we did the show yesterday about, is Nick Nurse's time here over and yada, yada, yada. Like, they're going to play 2 national TV games the rest of this week, right? Tonight against New York, Saturday prime time against the Golden State Warriors.
8:30 start. Are you kidding
Listen,
me?
I know. And I think as much as you would like to think that these things don't matter for optics and like decision making, I do think if you follow an 8-game losing streak with just getting your heads kicked in, your doors blown off, however you want to phrase it on national TV, then that's at the point where like Josh Harris, David Edelman, all these guys have to sit down and look and be like, are we willing to just sit here and be a national embarrassment for the rest of the season?
Well, and that's the one thing that really like spurs Josh Harris into action.
Yes.
Being a national embarrassment. He hates it. We have a lot of, past experience with that, and they are a national embarrassment right now.
So what I would say is we're talked so much about how bad this defense is for the Sixers lately, right? They don't defend hard. They don't get back in transition. Well, the Knicks, most people think Tom Thibodeau, and they got Devon's cousin. They re-signed OG. They got Cat, and they thought they'd have Mitchell Robinson, although he's probably going to return soon, I believe. So they have their big front court. This will be a good defensive team because that's kind of who Thibodeau teams are. Instead, they've been a top 3 offense, right? They score like crazy. It's been the best probably offensive team that Thibodeau has ever had. Capping out impacts that, right? Because the spacing gets worse when you're able to play 5 out and you have a guy in Karl Anthony Towns who this is one of his best seasons, if not his best season ever, I think, especially when you consider the pressure that was on him once they traded for him. So in theory, you should be able to get more stops because you should be able to crowd the paint a little bit more and take some things away. Should be harder to get back cut, blah, blah, blah. But like, I say all this to say, this is true a lot of nights, right? You should be able to stop the Chicago Bulls with no Nick Vucevic and with Lonzo Ball going out at halftime.
Certainly the Nets without D'Angelo and Cam.
But it's like, none of it matters, right? We can put the pieces on the chessboard and say, this is what it should look like on paper, and this is how you should attack it. If they don't come out with a professional effort, all our on paper stuff, all the schematic things that you could do just gets washed away. And so the first thing and the first 3 to 5 things that we have to watch tonight and in the weeks ahead are these guys going to play? Just straight up, are they going to show up for the game? And I don't know what the tolerance level is at the organizational level for just completely embarrassing themselves the rest of the way. I don't think it can go too long, though. They can't just go winless the rest of the year, and they can't just keep over and over and over again get beat up by teams.
You mentioned it doesn't matter what pieces are on the chessboard. Other teams going out there with 16 pawns and finding a way to score 130. So yeah, it doesn't matter. And
the other piece to the Nick Nurse side of it, let's say they get really embarrassed tonight, which we have seen over the last couple of games. They're off Thursday and Friday going into that Saturday game. So that's 2 days of talking about just that and not an actual game again where they get blown out once again, but 2 days off to focus on something like that. And then if they do whatever they do and go into the Saturday night game, maybe they hold off just because they don't want to have an interim coach there on a Saturday night game against the Golden State Warriors. But these 2 days off, if they get their doors blown off again, it's going to be a long 2 days for the Sixers, the front office, the management team, and all to have a discussion about what they need to do going forward. So, yeah, the effort needs to be there tonight. But we just talked about this, man. The fact that they did what they did against Brooklyn and saved themselves from even further embarrassment by coming back and making that a game, taking the lead to ultimately have Nick Claxton winning on that offensive putback. But then that's not enough for you to go ahead and focus again to make sure that when you lace them up against the lowly Chicago Bulls.
They were down 50.
50, man.
I will never be able to talk about that game and not be like, they were down 50,
They were down
man.
50, man. To not have your shoes tightened up, laced up tight enough, man, and not have your jersey tucked in well enough, and whatever you want to say about them to go out there and compete in that game. You gave up 39 points in the first quarter to that Chicago Bulls team. Imagine what could happen tonight. We already talked about Yabusele being out. We know Joel Embiid is out. That leaves Abona and Drummond. Drummond's going to start. We'll get to the starters. But Preston Achiuwa on the other side, if Cat is not playing, that's an active body at the 5 that when he was out, since I watched the Knicks a little bit, they he gives them something there, especially against a team like this. Sure, Drummond will get his fair share, but between Hart and Anunoby and Achua there in that front court, they're going to crash the glass like they always do and make it difficult. So effort has to do with everyone, but Drummond is certainly going to have to do his part. He's going to have to do his piece, not get in foul trouble. And if Bona is out there, we know he'll give the effort. He might get himself in trouble. Then that'll leave Nick Nurse in another tough spot of making a decision of how he needs to go forward within how the game is playing out. And this is what they leave all of us for, to evaluate and analyze of all these things that are happening. And it's just terrible, terrible basketball every time they get out there on the floor. There's 17 games under 500 here, folks.
Is that good?
No, that's not good, because they were also down 50 to the Bulls. 50 the other day. And it's just, it's that this is a bad product right now. And like we said yesterday, just for me to close this part out, is we keep talking about the Nets and the Bulls and the Wizards and all these teams that are bad. The Sixers are just as bad. You're 17 games under 500 with an 8-game losing streak, and it's probably going to extend past tonight. They are that bad, just like those other teams. And that's why we expect what we expect tonight against this Knicks team. But it starts with the effort.
Well, great time to talk about the starting lineup tonight, baby.
All right, let's do that. The 37th now starting lineup, different starting lineup for the Philadelphia 76ers. Every time they change it, I'm going to update it. This is the 37th different starting lineup for the Philadelphia 76ers now.
So the clearest sign yet that they are tanking is that Andre Drummond is starting this game.
I don't think that's true.
I
think they're going to play poorly, but I don't think that's why Nick is making that decision.
I agree.
I wish I could give him that.
Remember how we say they don't have to try to lose and tank? He's that bad. Just because.
If you play him 30 minutes a night, you're almost guaranteed going to lose.
I agree.
There is just no way around it, right? We could throw out every advanced stat. We could throw out the basic stats. We could just show you a clip of him playing defense. Even when he's able to
airballing 4-foot layups,
even when he's able to put some numbers on the board, like get a few offensive rebounds and score, it's like that
go
looks
8
good
for 8 from the free throw line.
Oh, it looks great in a box score, and then it just it does not match what actually happens in the game, which is, I said it the other night, and I can't remember who it was in our Discord, said he moves like a tree. And I wrote in the recap, I was like, he moves like Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. He can't move. He might be very strong and powerful, but if you can't move, doesn't really matter. So with him out there, look, all the defensive issues that they have, they get worse.
Here's how bad it is too. So when I was putting together the pregame picks, I looked at his scoring number and they had it at 8.5. I didn't have the guts to take the under. I left it out altogether. But my initial thought was take the under of Drummond's 8.5 here. That's how bad.
I'll be honest. If I were, you're gambling given, so you're the expert here.
No.
If I were the one making all these lines, the rest of the year I'm just betting on other teams. Just give me their props. Because it's in the same category of trying to rationally analyze. Oh, here's the matchup, right? On paper, it's like, oh, Tyrese Maxey in this type of lineup with these teammates, he should get X amount of shots and get this amount of points and this amount of threes. And then there are games like the other night where it's like, well, he took 10 total shots and just kind of checked out. And it's like, I don't know. Give me Josh Hart rebounds. I'll hammer that over.
Well, listen, that might be in there. So. By the way, it's the 36. I'm sorry, I moved ahead one game. It's the 36 different starting lineup tonight for the Sixers.
There'll be a 37
Saturday.
soon enough.
We just like to be,
Bree,
right.
Can you pull up the tweet that I sent you is this from Jasmine Watkins?
What up, Jazz?
She said, if I send you this, it's almost over, but I'm about to finally lock in. Paul George making the announcement. I thought you would appreciate that.
I love the fact that there was no laughing. The other guys didn't interrupt him. He was focused in the camera. Let everybody know what I'm doing. My focus for the remainder of the season with this basketball team. We're gonna sneak in there, everybody, and you're gonna like it. I need to check the standings just quickly since he said that. I didn't check earlier just to see exactly how far back they are from the 10th seed in there, and they are right now, they are 2.5 games back of the Bulls, 1 game back of the Nets. They are in the 12th spot right now.
Real quick, a couple of key games that you should watch out for.
Tank watch, baby. We need a graphic for this.
You've got Raptors at Pacers. Obviously, the Raptors have the 5th worst record. There are 2 games, we'll call it, in front of the Sixers for that 5th worst record. You've got Blazers at Wizards. And for the most part, you're going to want the Raptors to win. You're going to want the Blazers to win. Blazers are, they're pretty far away from the Sixers at this point. It doesn't really matter, but you'd like a little more ground. Thunder at Nets. Obviously, you want the Nets to win. Not holding my breath on that one. And then Clippers at Bulls. Bulls are 3 games up on the Sixers now. But any win by the Bulls would be good. So those are the ones you want to make sure you're watching out for as you scoreboard watch.
Good times.
That's where we're at.
Good times.
That's how I started my career covering the Sixers, and now I'm going to end it.
You're gonna
end it. Uh-oh.
You're not
breaking some news over there?
You're not going anywhere just yet. You got to suffer through all this with the Sixers. Let's get to the pregame pick segment brought to you by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365.
Joaquin said, "We the North," by the way.
We the North. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Let's get to the picks. Guess what? I did take the under for the 8.5 for Andre. But look
Josh Hart triple-double. Yes. The plus 1,200. Devon's going big. All right.
You started off
We
with
love a crazy parlay.
Let's get the crazy parlay going. He almost had a triple-double in the last game. They got blown. It wasn't a good game against Boston. And with this team being as shorthanded as it is, having issues on the offensive glass, having issues on the defensive glass, and a guy like him with the effort that he puts out there on the floor, Josh Hart, with no Karl Anthony Towns, where rebounds are going to be available, you're darn right I went with the Josh Hart triple-double tonight for the New York Knicks. So that's a plus 1,200 if you would like to get involved in that one. If you want to switch it around, just go points and assists or rebounds and assists and take the Drummond piece off. If you go to Bet365 with a 3+ leg parlay, it's a 30% profit boost at Bet365. So go ahead, switch it up however you want to see it with the odds and put together your ticket.
Oh, we got the Gambling Gibbons graphic,
there
baby.
You go. Hey, we get this plus 1,200. You got to bring out the graphic. And so if you want to do that, again, 30% profit boost at Bet365 on a 3+ leg parlay there on Bet365.
If you hit the plus 1,200, I will wear a cowboy hat on this show. How about that? I'll wear the Gambling Gibbons hat.
Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
How many triple-doubles does Josh Hart have in his career? I'm going to try to look that up before we leave.
I think he has like 7 this season.
Does he? Triple-doubles?
Might be like 7, 4, 5, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere.
He has.
there.
I mean, his playmaking's gotten a lot better, but
Yeah,
He has 7 as of this season.
this season. Yeah.
so 7 career.
13
7
in
this
his
season.
career.
This season.
7 this season.
Yeah.
See, the six in his career up until this season. The 7 this season surprised me, but
Yeah.
like I said, his playmaking.
Look at his last game. I believe he missed it by 1 or 2 assists.
Okay.
Against Boston. So yeah. So that's what he's been doing all season long. All right. That'll do it for us here, folks. You got to watch it. We got to watch it. We'll all talk about it after the game when we get back here to hang out afterwards to discuss whatever had happened. Will they snap their 8-game losing streak or will it be pushed to 9?
Do you even remember what it's like to talk about a win? It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
What was the last win? That was the Dallas game by 2 or 3 points that they won. Yeah, Dallas game at home where they won by 2 or 3, whatever that was. All right, we'll come back after the game. We'll hang out with all of you. We'll talk about something in regards to the Philadelphia 76ers. Don't worry. Podcast P is ready for tonight's
Locked
game
in.
and the rest of the season. Derek,
He's
Kyle,
ready. He's feeling
I'm
dangerous.
Devon,
He's going to score double
Championship
digits.
push, baby.
and Bree will be back after the game for the PHLY Sixers postgame show here on the postgame show presented by Bet365.
Lock in.
Lock in, everybody.
We all silly like the mayor.